TV, it's Business 360. In today's edition of Business 360, we'll be looking at the big stories making rounds in the world of business. But surely we heard that Saplat share slumped on Thursday at the London Stock Exchange after its approval to complete the acquisition of Mobile Producing Nigeria Unlimited (MPNU) was rejected. Well, on Monday, the President of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, had granted the request for the acquisition, but the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission (NUPRC) said consent can only come from the Commission as empowered by the Petroleum Industry Act. Following the revelation, foreign investors dumped Saplat shares on the London exchange floor, reflecting low confidence in the company's growth. Well, this and many more business outlook we will be talking about today. And we'll start with McDonald's. McDonald's has announced plans to reopen outlets in Ukraine, which closed after Russia's invasion in March. The fast food chain said it hoped to move and would help restore a small but important sense of normalcy. According to the burger giant, there will be a phased reopening over the next several months in Kiev and western Ukraine in areas deemed safe. McDonald's had more than 100 restaurants in Ukraine before the conflict started. The company has continued to pay wages to more than 10,000 staff since then. It's not easy paying wages when the company is not really working. Ukrainian and good news to businesses around the world, showing that there seems to be a relax of the war in certain areas in Ukraine. Talking about businesses, Ryanair won't be steady without what's happening in the globe. The chief executive Michael O'Leary says that the era of cheap tickets for flights, talking about the €10 tickets, is over. The airline's average fare would rise from around €40, which is equivalent of £33.77 last year, to roughly €50 at over the next 5 years, according to him. But he says he believes people will continue to fly frequently, despite the rising cost of living. Well, anywhere around the world, you don't expect things to change because of the cost of fuel and cost of living is difficult for businesses and difficult for airlines. That's why Ryanair is saying there are no more cheap air flight tickets. But talking about the conditions of the world, we'll also be looking at the producer price index as US producer prices fall for the first time in over 2 years. Producer prices in the US unexpectedly fell 0.5% month over month in July of 2022, following a downwardly revised 1% rise in June and beating market forecast of 0.2% increase. It is the first decline in the PPI in over 2 years, mostly due to 16.7% drop in gasoline prices. Good news. Also, the cost of diesel fuel, gas fuel, oil seals, iron and steel scrap, and grains moved lower, and in contrast, cost of services edged up 0.1%, mainly due to a rise in prices for margins for fuels and lubricants retailing at 12.3%, and transportation and warehousing services 0.4%. Also, producers paid more for services related to securities brokerage and dealings, hospital outpatient care, automobiles, automobile parts retailing, and transportation of passengers. On the annual basis, producer inflation fell to 9.8%, the lowest since October, and compared to forecast of 10.4%. Remember, recently, the US had talked about certain price changes, especially the inflation rate, which dropped and is beginning to affect the whole of the economy in the US. And the whole world is hoping, since it seemed like inflation has peaked, it could also affect the rest of the world. But still in the US, We'll be looking at the U.S. unemployment index as jobless claims gets to the highest level since November. The number seems aligning because the number of Americans filing new claims for unemployment benefits rose by 14,000 to 262,000 the week that ended August 6th, slightly less than market expectations of 263,000, but hitting the highest since November. On a non-seasonally adjusted basis, jobless claims rose by 7,251 to 203,619 from last week's downward revised value, with notable increases taking place in Massachusetts, 7,447 addition, and California, 4,399 in the positive, while a sharp decline took place in Connecticut at a negative 6,323. Talking about unemployment rates. When the unemployment rates is getting higher in certain countries, then most likely it's an indication that inflation is high. But we'll be talking about Argentina's annual inflation as it surged past 70% last month. One of the fastest rates in the world after renewed political turmoil fueled price spikes, and a currency rout is difficult in Argentina at the moment. Consumer prices rose 71% in July from a year ago, the highest level in about 30 years, according to government data published on Thursday. On a monthly basis, the inflation rate spiked to 7.4%, accelerating at the fastest pace in 2 decades and slightly above economists' average expectations for 7.3%. It's getting higher and it's becoming a big problem in Argentina. We'll slow down a bit talking about inflation and the economy because we are going on a short break. When we return, we will look at the foreign exchange market trades based on what's happening globally and Ghana's inflation and the stock market report. Don't go anywhere. Thank you for staying tuned. It's Business 360 and my name is Blyden Okem. Everything is taking place here on Spectrum TV and it's exciting because the numbers are adding up. Talking about foreign exchange market. Pound stays steady. It barely reacts to the GDP figures that came out recently. The British pound was little changed at $1.22 as traders digest the latest GDP figures, which showed the UK economy shrank 0.1% in second quarter and 0.6% in June only, with both readings coming half the market forecast. Although figures were not as bad as expected, they did little to ease concerns that a severe contraction will hit the UK, as skyrocketing prices hurt activity and demand. It's all about the prices. Early this month, the Bank of England painted a grim economic outlook and projected the UK's longest recession since the global financial crisis, while raising interest rates by 50 basis points, its largest hike since 1995. Well, let's have a quick look at the foreign exchange market, what is happening between the euro against the dollar, as well as the pounds against the dollar. It's the market measure, and we're talking about prices and the change in price in today's market. It's quite early, still within the London market, and the Euro USD is at a current price of $1.02964, talking about €1 equaling $1.02964. The change is simple, not much, 0.0023 points and a 0.22 percentage drop. At a quick look at the pounds USD, a similar drop, showing that the dollar is a bit strengthening today's market at $1.21475 to a pound, a current drop of 0.00455 and a 0.37% drop. Well, talking about the Aussie, which is the Australian dollar against the US dollar, it's been on the progress, showing great strength from the Australian dollar at 0.16% increase in today's market. Likewise, the New Zealand dollar doing similarly at 0.13% gain. The Japanese yen is on the rise against the US dollar too. USD JPY at 0.14% increase in today's market. Market is going a little back and forth, but it's not quite volatile. It's on a simply steady movement, not very high. But talking about the big stories, let's go to Nigeria and the second quarter 2020 H1 report in Nigeria. It shows clearly that the banking sector leads and attracts $1.47 billion inflows in 6 months. The Nigerian banking industry attracted $1.47 billion as capital inflows in the first half of 2022, an increase of 109.8% compared to the $698.2 million received in the second half of last year, and 46.5% higher than the $1 billion inflows recorded in the corresponding period of 2021. According to the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN's) data, the banking sector recorded the highest foreign inflows in the period under review compared to other sectors in the Nigerian economy, accounting for 47.1% of the inflows into the country. The manufacturing and financing sectors followed with $457.7 million and $396.7 million respectively. Also, a total of $3.11 billion in capital was imported into the Nigerian economy as foreign inflows between January and June 2022, most of which were in the form of foreign portfolio investments. Still on African matters and businesses, we'll be looking at Ghana's economic index as inflation rate rises to 31.7% in July 2022. Inflation rate rose in Ghana further in the month of July 2022 after the headlines rate surged to 31.7% from 29.8% recorded in the previous month. Recall that the country's inflation rate touched a 19-year high in June as a result of a surge in transportation costs, transportation affecting everywhere. Inflation is a general increase in prices and fall in the purchasing value of money. The hike in transport costs is due to the sustained global energy prices, which has seen the price of gasoline hit record high as crude oil prices remain elevated. Also, higher costs of household equipment and maintenance and utilities like electricity, gas, and water contributed to the uptick in the inflation numbers. It's the same thing everywhere in Africa these days. The West African nation has witnessed a sharp rise in its year-on-year inflation rate, despite averaging 12% in the last quarter of 2021. However, inflation rate averaged 27% in the second quarter of 2022 and is set upward with a 31.7% rate in the review month. Let's have a listen to what the CBN leaders had to say in Ghana. Oil and gas discoveries are to boost Algeria's economy. In Algeria, 3 discoveries were made in the Algerian desert, and it should expand Algeria's gas and oil deliveries in Europe as the continent looks beyond Russia for gas deliveries. Algeria's state-owned oil company, Sonatrach, has announced 3 major oil and gas discoveries in the Sahara Desert since the outbreak of the war in Ukraine and the need for Europe to end its energy dependency on Russia. Algeria has been intensively drilling to increase its production of oil and gas. The first discovery is a gas condensate located in 2 different reservoirs, which were found following the drilling of an exploration well in the Elysee Basin, located at the border with Libya. According to the company, the flow rates recorded by the 2 reservoirs amounted to 513,000 cubic meters per day as gas during the test phase. Another discovery of crude oil was made in partnership with Italian oil company Eni in the northern region of the Bakin Basin, which produced 1,300 barrels per day of oil and 51,000 cubic meters per day of associated gas. The 2 discoveries are located close to existing oil and gas facilities. Algeria are doing their bit and pushing the mark in order to discover more oil and see how they can make more money in the global oil economy. Talking about business, the only way to cap businesses is to look at what they represent at the stock market. That is why now we're looking at the Nigerian stock market. Market cap in the Nigerian stock market slumped yesterday to 26.9 trillion naira amid losses in Caverton and Stanbic IBTC Bank. Investors in the Nigerian capital market lost 32.83 billion naira following the crash in equity capitalization by 0.12% on Thursday, which set the pace to what might happen in today's market. The equity capitalization dropped from 27 trillion naira posted on Wednesday to 26.97 trillion naira after 8 hours of trading. Also, the all-share index was down by 60.87 basis points to close at 50,014.6 points as against 50,075.47 recorded the previous day, which was on Wednesday. Investors splashed 1.6 billion naira on 133.59 million shares in 4,292 deals. This fell short of 2.08 billion naira the shareholders coughed out for 279.22 million in 3,576 deals, which happened on Wednesday. In the Nigerian stock market, or some would call the capital market, NACO led the gainers with 53 kobo to rise from 5 naira 30 kobo to 5 naira 83 kobo per share. Associated Bus Transport topped the losers chart after shedding 6.67% to drop from 30 kobo to 28 kobo per share. UBA led the day's trading with 20.45 million shares valued at 143.64 million naira. This is where we draw the curtain on today's Business 360 edition. Do stay with us pertaining to our news that's coming up by 12. Don't go anywhere. Thank you for watching. My name is Blyden Ukem.